Greetings, compatriots, and thank you for watching this edition of Meet the Candidate 2024. My name is Jonathan McLeese, and I'm a compatriot out of Admiral Raphael Sims Camp number 1321, Dearborn, Michigan. And I'm joined by my co-host today.
Nice to meet y'all, Vinny Balducci. Some of y'all call me Cousin Vinny. Coming to y'all from the northernmost southern state of New Jersey, Private Meredith Pool Camp 1505, based out of Hamilton.
Thank you, Vinny. And for the next little while, we're going to be chatting with Carl Jones, who is a candidate running for Commander of the Army of Tennessee Department at the 2024 National Reunion of the Sons of Confederate Veterans in North Charleston, South Carolina, this upcoming July. Before we get started, let me deliver the following disclaimer. This program and the views or opinions that follow are not authorized or endorsed by the Sons of Confederate Veterans at the national level, its General Executive Council, any of its Army departments, divisions, brigades, camps, or any other subsidiary of the SCV. This is simply a program made by SCV members for the benefit of SCV members, giving members an opportunity to see and hear from the candidates running for offices in 2024 that have a position on the General Executive Council. And now, without further delay, we'll bring on our guest. Thanks for coming on today with us, Carl. How you doing?
Doing good, buddy. Happen to be here.
It's a thrill for us to have you on, sir. And if you're ready to get started, we'll go ahead and get it clicking.
I'm ready when you are.
Awesome. Before we get to the list of questions, if you would just briefly introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about your background and your SCV credentials.
I'm Carl Jones. I joined the Sons of Confederate Veterans in March of 2004. I believe it was March. That was when I attended my first meeting. I was instantly hooked on the SCV. Great camp meeting. I was originally a member of the Fighting Joe Wheeler camp in Birmingham, Alabama. About 8 years later, I transferred to the local camp that's a little closer to me. I lived an hour away from the Wheeler camp, so I eventually transferred into the Thomas Jefferson Denny camp in Coleman, Alabama, which is now, the county I live in. Served in, as a newsletter editor of the Wheeler camp for several years. I was so hooked on the SCV, I made 78 consecutive meetings without missing one. I don't know how many years that adds up to, but I think I had the highest efficiency rating in the camp history for meeting attendance. But and the first one I missed, I was invited to speak at another camp. So I was up actually in Winston County speaking at another camp that night instead of at my own. So that broke my my string. So anyway, served as second lieutenant commander of that camp, which at that time was the largest camp in Alabama, around 140 members, I believe, based on memory. Eventually became first lieutenant commander. Never served as camp commander because I transferred right as I was, and I'd also been kind of pulled into division leadership in 2008. As chief of staff to the division commander at that time, and that sort of started my career in leadership positions outside of my own camp, which has been unceasing since then. So yeah, that's where it leads me to where I am today.
Awesome. And you currently are the Army of Tennessee councilman.
Yeah, that's correct. I literally kind of climbed, I didn't skip any offices going to Army command or Army councilman. I mean, I was chief of staff for the Alabama division. Then I ran and became Northwest Central Brigade commander in Alabama, then second lieutenant commander of the Alabama division. While I was brigade commander, I was also AOT, chief of heritage operations, and I was first lieutenant commander of my camp. So I was actually in 3 offices at one time there for a few years. became second lieutenant commander in 2012, first lieutenant commander in 2016, and also simultaneously was national chief of heritage operations from 2016 to 2018. 2018 to 2020, I was deputy chief of for National of Heritage Operations and Alabama Division Commander. And then after becoming division commander, ran for Army councilman, and I've been in that office since.
That is one heck of an amazing journey, you know, truly is. And the three at once, I don't know how you found the time to do that. That's I'm like, my mind is blown.
Well, it's, you know, like I said at the AOT meeting in Hot Springs, Hot Springs, trying to remember where we were last year. They all run together after a while for me. When you get older, you'll understand that when you get my age. But, you know, when you love something, you make time for it. And, you know, this is the SCV is a family thing to me. You know, my wife goes to a lot of functions with me. I've got a very supportive wife, thankfully. I've seen situations where people didn't. It's hard to serve, you know, well in the SCV if your spouse does not support you, and thankfully mine does, because you know, I love the organization, and I love the members and what we do and what we stand for. So
absolutely. So getting the ball rolling on the you know, the first question that I'm going to ask is, in about 2 minutes, could you please sum up your candidacy and the purpose of your running for your respective office?
I mean, I kind of just did my candidacy. You know, I think what I bring to the table is a pretty fair amount of experience across the board, from camp leadership to division leadership to Army leadership to national leadership. I mean, I've kind of been there and done that in a lot of respects. Still, you know, hey, we all still have a lot to learn. I'm kind of a perpetual student in just about everything I do. So the SCV is no different. You know, my candidacy in terms of my purpose for running, you know, it's pretty simple. It's because it's service to the membership. I mean, I'll give you a really simple answer. Like I said, this organization, I mean, the members, the people in this organization, so many are literally like family to me. You know, I've made a ton of friends over the years in this organization, and you know, it's just service. I enjoy serving the organization. Beyond that, I believe wholeheartedly, 100%, in what we stand for, in the cause that we stand to protect and defend and preserve and perpetuate and hand down to our posterity. And I said this a long time ago when I was brigade commander. I said, I don't know if I'm a member of the SCV or I'm a part of the SCV so much as it's a part of me. So, you know, it's sort of who I am. So why would I not serve? So.
Absolutely. You know, when I joined, I'm a fairly new member in comparison to you. I joined in 2015, and when I joined, and for a few years afterward, I really didn't understand the different offices on the GEC and what they represented and their function. And I was wondering if you could please define the function of the Office of Commander of Army of Tennessee Department, and I mean, you've already talked about what qualifies you, but could you define that office position for us?
Well, the most basic function of that office is that the Army commander represents the divisions within his Army. So the councilman represents the membership. The Army commander represents the divisions themselves. So it's you know, in the chain of command, you know, if a member of, you know, in Michigan or New Jersey per se had an issue that he can't resolve with his camp commander, brigade commander, division commander, he would go to his Army councilman. On the other hand, if that division commander could not resolve an issue within his division, he would come to me, and that's the most basic function of it. So I would represent the divisions themselves with regards to policies and things of that nature at the GEC meeting. Beyond that, I mean, I kind of think too, it's very important for the Army commander to have served as a division commander, because one of my foremost goals as Army commander is to help the divisions, to help their people, help their camps and their local affiliates to grow. That was my goal as division commander: grow the SCV by growing the camps, which we did grow in Alabama when I was division commander. We netted a 5% growth in a 6-month period. I think the first 6 months I didn't do that. The division did. It was, we had a council that bought into what I wanted to do, and we went out and got it done. And we held 8 brigade workshops in my division in 1 year. So I think I put a very high stock in training our members to grow, training our camp officers to grow their camps. And I want to, I think that's something that an Army commander can bring to the various divisions throughout the Army, is the knowledge and experience that can be handed down to the camps. And it would be a much better benefit to the entire organization if we can perpetuate that growth.
Absolutely.
And you're going to say growth a lot throughout the day. I've read the questions, and a lot of the answers go back to that. So forgive me if I become redundant.
No.
That's all good. No, growth is critical, because, with growth, it comes, a larger organization, which is important. So one of the things that, happens is when we grow, if there's an issue, communication might be a problem. And my next question on that topic is, for years, there has been discussion about improving communications in the SCV. If elected, how would you propose changing communications for the better?
This is going to be an answer that a lot of people may not like, but, I'm just going to be blunt. I think right now we have got more ways of communicating. I've been hearing this for 20 years. The length of time that I've been in the SCV, we don't get any communication. Okay, but take into account, you've got a Confederate veteran that comes out 6 times a year. Most divisions, I think, have division newsletters. You've got camp newsletters. You've got the Telegraph. Now you've got SCV chat. Now you've got what you're doing here. There's Facebook pages for the SCV. Every division that I'm aware of, I think, has a Facebook page. I'm in most of them in the AOT. National has got a Facebook page. You got Google My Business for the museum. There's tons and tons of avenues of communications. And this is the blunt part of it. I think if you don't know what's going on, you might ought to pay attention, and sorry if that offends people, but the way that I find out about things that are going on is I talk to other members. I talk to other officers. I read, what I'm presented with. It's almost, if there's one detriment to the communications right now in the advanced technological age that we live in, it's almost like there are too many modes of communications. Like my sons don't do Facebook. They're on Instagram or some other venue, and there's so much out there, between Twitter or whatever they're calling it now and all these other, it's almost like you got to be on everything in order to reach every different age group and every different demographic of people. So how do you streamline that? I wish I could tell you, but I don't. I think that for the average member, though, there are plenty of opportunities. You just need to kind of be connected with your camp. And I'll say this too, and I've maintained this for a long time. I think that one of the things that is crucial in filtering communication from national down to the camp is the brigade commander's office. I think that is an extremely, one of the most important offices in the SCV, and their importance, I think, often gets overlooked by the organization. We just did a brigade commander's workshop for the Mississippi Division. Commander Hill and I did this past weekend. And, that was one of the things that we emphasized. Visit your camps, communicate with your camps. When I was a brigade commander, every time the Alabama Division Executive Council met, I sent out an email. Here's what we discussed. Here was, or here's what we've got coming up. What are your opinions on this? And then the camp commander's got to, project those things down to the members, but the members have got to listen too. If we send out the Confederate veteran, if you don't read it, you're not going to know what's in it. So, there's my blunt but long-winded answer.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think what you said about maybe having too many, an oversaturation of communication avenues, is also very true too. Not sure exactly what you do about that, but yeah, we have as members, we have a responsibility to try to plug in any avenue that we can. So I think you're right about that as well. So I'm going to skip a little bit further down the line of questions here. We've talked about Army commander, and obviously that is a critical role within the Army of Tennessee Department. And it also has a function as at the national level as well. Because you're going to be involved, if elected, in making decisions regarding national level issues in the organization. And so I was wondering, what new and innovative ideas do you have to increase long-term revenue coming into the SCV?
Long-term revenue specifically, we hit on it earlier, membership. Membership drives it. I mean, if you think about it, you can have all kind of gimmicky things to go out and raise money. And I don't mean gimmicky, as a pejorative. I'm not saying that in a negative way. You've got to do those things. But if you want a steady cash flow in the type of organization that we're in, what you've got to have is members. You've got to have more members. We've got to grow the organization. And the camp is the backbone of the organization. So that has got to start at the local camp. The local camp has got to present something to prospective members that they want to be a part of. Remember when I told you I made 78 camp meetings in a row? You know why? Because I wanted to be there. I walked out of a meeting and I couldn't wait to come back the next one. At one point, I actually think I proposed having 2 meetings a month because I didn't want to go a whole month without coming back. If every camp is run in that manner, you're going to see massive growth throughout the organization. So I don't think that what I'm suggesting here is necessarily innovative in a technological sense. It's just kind of doing the fundamentals, doing the things that make people want to be a part of who we are, and making them aware of why what we do is important. I think another thing that would maybe fall into the innovative part of it is that we need a much, much, much stronger presence and a combined presence and a consistent presence on social media. I'm not going to talk too in depth on that because I believe there are plans in the works to make that happen, but that's something I've been saying a long time is, SCV Chat got the ball rolling on that. And now we need to expand into other areas in terms of our online presence. That effective marketing, things of that nature, these are things that I think as an organization that we've got to do. And simultaneously, we have to prepare the camps to receive people in the local area who see the message, who become familiar with the organization. It's like I tell camps all the time when I'm giving lectures on recruiting. If you're recruiting members into a dysfunctional camp, you're wasting your time. I've seen members come to a dysfunctional camp and they were all fired up when they got there, and then they never came back because that camp did not offer anything of substance. So it's got to all be simultaneous. You've got to have a well-run, efficiently run camp that has a purpose, that has a, that offers you something you feel like you're a part of. And then at national, what we can do, I think, is take steps to, to kind of drive the marketing aspects, or to at least, kind of strengthen the marketing aspects. But it's all got to work together. It's like an assembly line. All these entities within the organization, from national down to the Army, down to the division, down to the brigade, down to the camp, down to the individual member, have all got to work together. There's got to be cohesiveness there.
Absolutely. And I love that whole idea that, when you have a camp that is dysfunctional, you're going to lose retainment. So that's so true. And that's something that we have to work on with, retaining, recruiting, and along those lines too, getting out there, getting involved. My next question is, do you support the SCV being involved in the community service projects, helping those outside of the SCV? If yes, what ideas do you have for doing so? And if no, please elaborate.
I have been preaching that for as long as I can remember. I can't take credit for the idea because, like a lot of other ideas that I've come up with, it came to me years ago by a means of observation. When I saw a strong camp, and say in my brigade or my division, I noticed that all of the camps that had consistent growth, that had consistent camp meetings, that they were doing certain things. And one of those was a high visibility within the local community. Some of the things that some of the ideas that I have, that I get, that I encourage, and I've been doing this for years. If you ever go back to the, 2016 to 2018 era and read the articles that I was writing in the Confederate Veteran when I was Chief of Heritage Operations, you'll find that was my central message, was to get involved in your local community. We should look like any other civic organization in the local community, no different than the Kiwanis Club, the Lions Club, the VFW, or any other organization. That's how we should be seen in the local community. When we do that, and I'll say this, when you see a camp that has a strong relationship in the local community, has the backing of the populace of that community, and they've made inroads and they presented a positive image of who we are to the county commission, the city council, the powers that be within that area, guess what we don't see? We don't see monuments coming down. We don't see street names being changed. Why? Because they know who we are. We've got a relationship there. So 100%, I think that community relations are one of the absolute first things that every camp ought to be working on. A couple ideas there. Join the Chamber of Commerce, but don't just join it. Attend the meetings. Provide a presence there. Have somebody in your camp who is a good speaker, who is a good representative of the camp and the organization, and have him attend the meetings. We get known that way. Invite the general public. When you have a good speaker coming in, don't just tell your camp members about it. Invite the other civic organizations. Come see this speaker, especially if they're talking about local history. People love local history. That's a great way to open up your camp to the organization. My camp was the first one. Talk about community outreach. My camp was the first one in the SCV to have a law enforcement day. National actually got that idea from my camp. When we did law enforcement day and we fed barbecue to all of the law enforcement in our county. The sheriff, we're on great terms with him and the various other county commissioners and these people. We had a monument that was put up here, and I'm trying to remember what year it was, but they built a veterans park in my county. And they had monuments to World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and all that. We went to the county commission and said, there were a lot of Confederate veterans that came out of this area. Why don't we have a monument for them? They said, tell us what you want on it. The county paid to put it up. That's what community relations will do for you. Okay, so yes, that is part of the backbone. That's part of the process of having a vibrant and successful camp. And by extension, think about it like this way. I don't know the exact number of camps we have in the SCV. It's over 800. What if all 800 plus of them had a strong relationship in the local community, the woke agenda would die.
Absolutely.
That's a fact. You're absolutely right about that. And you know, this right along with being involved in community projects goes this next question is how important is it for the SCV to be explaining what we stand for out in the public?
Well, that's our number one goal. I mean, that's what we've got to do. And you know, I don't want to pat myself on the back here or anything, but I came up with an idea in I think it was 2012 or 2013 to provide the Alabama Division Education Conference. We would bring in nationally known speakers, and the whole purpose was not a money making thing. We started out when we started, it was $30, and that included lunch. Anybody in Alabama could attend. Over the course of the time that we did those, and we broke them off during COVID because we couldn't put them on. We're reviving that now, as a matter of fact, next weekend. I think, no, the 16th, 2 weeks from now. Commander Hill and I started it, and I came up with the idea. Jimmy, as always, told me how to make it work, and we collaborated on that, and now we're bringing it back. But we've had Brian McClanahan there. Of course, Ron and Donnie Kennedy have been there. Thomas DiLorenzo has been there. This one that's coming up, Ryan Walter, who you've seen on the SCV chat, will be there. Tommy Daniel, he's a music professor. He's going to talk about Southern music. He'll be there. So all of that to say this, it's kind of like the SD Lee on a smaller scale, but we usually get about 100 to 120 people there. And the purpose of that was to educate the members so that they could project our history. They could have a much more knowledgeable understanding of our history, of the cause, what the Confederate soldier really fought for, not the nonsense that's being taught throughout the government education system. But, you know, think about it like this. What if all 30,000 members in the organization could explain why the South seceded, what justified their secession, what justified, a farm boy leaving his wife and children and family behind and going off to war for 4 years with no guarantee of coming back, a high probability that he would not come back. What if every member could explain that effectively? How much stronger would we be as an organization? How much could we do to turn the tide on the propaganda mill that's now dominating the narrative and has for so many years?
I love that idea of just a day of just education. That's so important. And some great names there, like Mr. DiLorenzo wrote a fantastic book on the real Lincoln that not a lot of people know the truth about. So going off of John's question, my next one kind of builds upon that because you have a lot of people in the community that are interested in the SCV. They might not qualify for full membership. And my question is, what are your thoughts about the associate membership program at the camp level and Friends of the SCV program?
Jimmy Hill and I and Gary Carlisle, our chaplain-in-chief, all three of us are past Alabama Division commanders. So we got invited to do a brigade workshop in the Southeast Brigade here in Alabama back a month or so ago. And one of the things I told them was, we talk about recruitment all the time. What does that mean? In my mind, it means recruit to the cause, not just the organization. The military uses a term called force multiplication. If you look back during the Vietnam War, the Army Special Forces, you think of the Green Berets, you think of them as being these fantastic fighters. Well, that's not what they really did. What they really did was they were dropped into areas where they rounded up like-minded people and trained them on how to fight. Okay, what's that have to do with us? You got communities where you've got probably thousands of people and even small towns that philosophically agree with our cause, and they philosophically and morally oppose the destruction that's being wreaked on our monuments and on our history. But they're not engaged. Maybe they don't want to join. Maybe they don't qualify to join, but they still agree with us. We still want them, okay? We want them involved. If they can't join, fine, sign them up as friends. At the very minimum, ask them, hey, if you support us, can we count on you maybe 4, 5, 6 times a year to write a letter to the state legislator to stop some kind of bill that's being proposed? How about the county commission? Things of that nature. So what I'm telling you is the friends of the SCV, associate members, if they believe as we do, I don't care if they have the ancestry or not, get them involved by recruiting to the cause, not just to amplify membership, but make our voices louder. Think about it like this, and I'll shut up on that because I can go a long time on this. Say you got a 40-man camp, and each member of that camp has got 10 family members, friends, co-workers, people he goes to church with. Each one of them has 10 of those who's willing to pick up the phone, shoot an email, send a letter so many times a year. You have just turned that 40-man camp into a 400-man camp. And in a town of, say, 2,600, 3,000 people, guess what? That's significant. That's a big number, okay? It's a simple concept, but one we've not taken advantage of.
That is so true. And the focus that you put on growth is incredible and so prime for what we're doing, because obviously those that we are finding opposition to us, their numbers are so large. But of course, with growth, you're bringing in all these different ideas and all these different personalities, and conflict does come up eventually. And so I was wondering, what is the number one thing that we can do to bring the membership together and prevent division?
I pondered on that question when you sent them to me. I looked over the list of questions this morning, and I wish I had a magical answer to that, but the fact is we're all human. I've told people for years, if you want to know the number one destroyer of camps or of any movement or any organization, it comes down to one thing, and that's ego. And, we've all got ego. The question is, can you keep yours restrained? Can I keep mine restrained? I don't know how you do that. There's always going to be a percentage of people who just aren't going to go along with the program. They're going to criticize everything you do, and we can't correct their thinking. We just got to find a way to work around that and move on and go forward. But thankfully, that is in the instances where I have seen division at any level within the organization, it's always a very small percentage of people who divide the other masses. And I think that what you have to do is be fair to everybody, and try to bring everybody back into the fold, and to, just to kind of ignore the naysayers, work around them. I think communication plays a big role in this. Honesty, above all else, in your communications plays a big role in it. We can't, trying to think of a nice way to say it, we can't get into ego battles and that sort of thing and return evil for evil, as the Bible says. So, if somebody's out there calling me a bad name, well, Carl's an idiot, he shouldn't be doing this, that, the other. Okay, well, I appreciate your opinion. Now let me move on. Okay, but don't throw it back on them, because all that's going to do is exacerbate the problem. So, I wish I could give you a more coherent answer to that, but as I said, starting out, we're all human, and where you have human beings, you're going to have problems and divisiveness, and I don't know that can be overcome. We just hopefully can minimize it in some way. So,
absolutely true. I love that point about preventing ego battles. So critical. And along those lines, my next question kind of goes with that: is how do you define effective teamwork within the SCV?
Well, we've all got to realize something that, I told them this last year at the Alabama division. Was it last year? I think it was last year at the Alabama division reunion. Of course, we're regionally proud. I'm proud to be a member of the Alabama division, the Northeast Brigade. Proud to be a member of my camp. And all of that is great up to a point. But one thing that we've all got to realize is that we're all the same organization. We're all descended from the people who fought the same cause. They fought a common cause. And the cause as it exists today, it's the same in Coleman, Alabama, as it is in Tullahoma, Tennessee, or Hot Springs, Arkansas, or Charleston, South Carolina. So it's all one cause, and we've got to realize that. One of the things, I've always been a proponent of camps working together, and I've seen it in my area. I mean, my camp, we get invited every year to be part of this huge Veterans Day organization. Well, we don't have any reenactors in my camp, but there's a camp one county over that does. So they come over and set up a living history. And another camp will come over and bring a cannon. And so you've got these camps that are working together, and it gives the SCV a much larger presence and a more attractive presence. What if every camp and every brigade in the SCV did those things? Because we're all promoting the same cause. I don't care where it is. I would travel to another brigade or what have you if I could help, if I had something they needed on a given day. An example of that, divisions can work together. Commander Patterson and Commander Nolan of Tennessee and myself and Commander Mike McMurray of Alabama, the four of us proved that. Okay. When I was division commander, the two things I wanted to do, I wanted to grow camps. And at that time, we had a lot of monuments that were coming down. The whole woke agenda had been off the ground for a couple of years. They'd taken down monuments in New Orleans. We're still fighting the battle in Memphis and all of that. And I wanted to put monuments up. Well, we bought 5 soldiers, the tops for monuments. And I had the idea one time, I don't remember what year it was, probably 2017, I guess, it's been 2019 probably, when I was division commander. And I said, we got all these monuments coming down. I wish we could put one up in a big way. And I'd like to do it in Tennessee, even though I'm an Alabama commander. So I ran it by Commander Bo Shears, and he was Army commander at the time. I said, you think Tennessee would do a joint project with Alabama? And I told him what I had in mind. He said, I'd love it. He said, I think they'd do it. So I called, James Patterson was Tennessee division commander at the time. I called him. He jumped all over the idea. He said, yeah, we'll provide the base. You provide the soldier. And so COVID hit, and James and I were out of office at that time. Well, Joey Nolan came in as Tennessee division commander. Mike McMurray came in as Alabama division commander, and they finished up what James and I started. And we were able to put up a monument on our property at the Nathan Bedford Forrest Boyhood Home, commemorating, memorializing all of the soldiers that rode with Forrest. All right. So part of that was to give the SCV a victory. We needed to see a monument go up. But another part of it was to promote the idea of divisions working together for a common goal. That was a big part of what I wanted to accomplish with that project. And it shows what the SCV can do when we all come together. And, that was a small example. There are others out there that can be done if we all get on the same page and realize, like I said at the beginning, that we work for the same cause.
Absolutely. And if I might say, as somebody who's visited that monument at the Forrest Boyhood Home, and as a descendant of someone who rode with Forrest at Chickamauga, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
memorial.
I was really happy. We had some hurdles because the quarries were shut down, and the Tennessee division had a hard time getting that base. We had to wait on them to open back up after COVID. So it took a lot longer than we'd planned, but I was very proud of how well it turned out. And I'm thankful that Commander Nolan and Commander McMurray stepped up and finished what James and I had started. But, you know, it'll be there hopefully for a long, long, long time for future generations to see. And, you know, it's small compared to the Memphis Monument, but we needed a victory. And we were just doing what we thought the SCV, you know, what would benefit the SCV. And again, like I said, a big part of that was showing that you can work together even across division lines or even across Army lines or what have you. So.
I love it. I love it. So my next question, earlier we asked you if you could define the office of Commander of Army of Tennessee Department. Now, this next question, it looks so very similar, but it's really so different. If you were to win the upcoming election, what does the title of the office of Commander of Army of Tennessee Department, what does that title mean to you?
You know, that's kind of a double-edged sword, because my first glance at that was, I don't think I've ever sought an office for a title. You know, I told people years ago when I was running, I don't even remember what office I was running for. Look, I'm going to do what I do regardless of whether I win the election or not. Okay, so with or without the title, I'm still going to be involved in whatever arena, whatever regard I can to try and help push the organization forward. So in terms of the title itself, you know, put whatever title you want on me. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything. If you're talking about the position of Army Commander, well, of course, it's an honor, you know, to be in that. But bigger beyond that, it's a big responsibility. You know, you got basically from Michigan all the way down to Florida. You know, I don't remember how many divisions exactly, but you're the representative for all of those divisions. So, you know, it's something I take very, very seriously. And I've got a definite plan and some goals that I want to accomplish that are kind of simple, but not easy at the same time. So yeah, from the standpoint of the position and the purpose of the position, well, it's taken on a lot of responsibility. And I think I've got the experience to carry it out. So we'll see what happens.
I'm actually curious to know more on the goals, because that just touched upon my next question, and that was, if you are elected, what are your goals and objectives for the first year of holding your office?
Growth. Period. Growth. I told you when I was division commander, I told the Alabama division the two biggest things I wanted to accomplish. I wanted to put up monuments, and I wanted to grow the organization, wanted to grow the division. And the key to growing the organization is to grow the camps. And the key to growing the camp is arming the camps to run efficiently and effectively in a manner that makes others want to be a part of the organization. And like I said, we held 8 brigade training workshops in my division the first year. I actually, before I was division commander, when I was first lieutenant of Alabama, I already knew a year in advance what I was going to do if I was elected division commander. So I started kind of building the foundation for that. I wrote an amendment, and there was some backlash on it, but it got passed. But I actually I wrote, and the division put into our Alabama Constitution that if you are a brigade commander in the Alabama division, part of your job description is that you must hold 1 workshop per year. You must do 1 training workshop per year. And I'm not talking about getting together and eating hot dogs and telling stories. I'm talking about actual training on camp effectiveness, on the role of officers, on adjutant's duties, on who your door greeter is, on what a camp program should look like, all of these things. All right, so it worked in Alabama. We grew by about five, and I can't take credit for all the growth. I mean, my plan, I should say, I'm not taking credit for any of it, but the plan that we, and all those workshops were not, that didn't account for all of the 5%, but it accounted for some of it. All right. So imagine this. What if the Army officers could collaborate to take that program to every division within the AOT? And what if there were a curriculum that brigade commanders could use to train their camps? And what if the camps bought into this process? And so that's one of my biggest goals, is to come up with a curriculum and then train the divisions on how to train their camps, on how to grow and run an effective camp that the average person says, yeah, I want to be a part of this. I think if we can establish that, again, it all goes back to the camp being the backbone of the organization. That has been true since 1896. It's true today. It will be the truth, a gazillion years from now. But if we want the camps to grow, if we want the organization to grow, the focus has got to be on the camps, and we've got to provide, we've got to take to them the information that they need to provide a welcoming organization.
Well, I think that goes beyond just the first year. I think that's probably the focus for the whole term is going to be growth. You've talked so much about it, and it's so key.
Well, if you look at it like this, if you look at what Army, and I'm not criticizing, so don't take it that way, but I've talked to several other division commanders in the AOT and told them kind of what I was thinking. But if you look at what Army officers have typically done, they show up at maybe it's your division reunion, and maybe at a monument dedication and things like that. Okay, how does that help you? You get the privilege of seeing my bald head and my smiling face. What else did I do for you? All right, but what if the Army commander, the Army officers can show up in your division instead of wasting their time or spending the money just being seen at an event? What if we come there and do a day-long workshop on camp growth, on recruiting, and retention, and those things? Which one of those would be more valuable to your division?
Absolutely true.
Absolutely.
And I like that whole, being more active in there. And I like how you elaborated more than just the first year, long-term, the growth goals, both short-term growth goals and long-term growth goals.
Yeah, realistically, I couldn't hit every division in the AOT in 1 year. It would have to be over a 2-year period. Right. But I've got a definite, idea of how to go about there. And there's still some logistics that I've got to work out on it, in terms of, well, I'll leave it at that. There's still some logistical things, but one way or the other, I think we could make it happen, So I don't think it's going to be difficult. It's just there's a couple of kinks in it that I've got to kind of come up with a plan to iron out. So, but it's highly doable, and so far the divisions that I've spoken to, I have been very receptive to it.
Well, if I might ask, the goals you've been very clear about. So how would you determine or evaluate success for the position you're running for?
That'd be hard to do. I think you can determine it by feedback. I mean, for one thing, the National does keep they do keep a record of growth and retention and those sorts of things. So, if the AOT suddenly went up by 5 or 10% over, say, a 1 or 2 year period, well, that'd be an indicator. But intangibly, I think, let's say you got a camp in Alabama somewhere that has been at 9 members, and suddenly they start doing the things that we're teaching them, educating them, training them to do, and all of a sudden they shoot up to, say, 79 members because that happened in Alabama. not too many years ago. You had a camp that was on the verge of going defunct, and 2 years later, they won National Camp of the Year, and they've been at 79, 80 members ever since, over 14, 15, 16 years now, just by doing, guess what? Getting involved in the community, providing a welcoming camp meeting, having camp programs. I'm talking about the Hobbs Camp, and is one of them in Athens, Alabama, which Commander Hill's a member of that camp. So you can evaluate growth that way. If you got a couple of camps in a division and all of a sudden they've got a fire built under them for whatever reason, well, if we train them, that's a potential, that's a possibility. And even if it doesn't lead to numbers, across the board, we've revived a camp in that area, in whatever area they happen to be in. So you can look at it a number of different ways, I guess. But what I'd like to see is, I guess it'd be a changing of the culture and how the Army works, how Army leadership works. It'd be sort of like changing the culture of what the position does to an extent. That would, going back to communication, that would flow downhill, and you change the culture of how the SCV functions from the top all the way down to the bottom. And if that facilitates growth, then we're in good shape. Because right now we've been just kind of like holding steady for a number of years, and I think that the key to our success is getting the camps more engaged and more vibrant.
Absolutely true. And I like that whole idea of changing the process of it, modernizing it in a way, if you will, as society is changing. And just kind of touches a little bit about that, because I like how you have a creative spin to a lot of things. To give an example of a time when you solved a problem you were faced with using your own initiative or out-of-the-box thinking.
Man, that's another one that was hard. I had to think back. It's funny. I told somebody the other day, if you asked me to give a rundown of what I accomplished as division commander, I would tell you go ask Jimmy Hill, because he keeps better record of those things than I do. It's kind of like when I get finished with something, I move on, and I don't, it just kind of escapes my brain. The best example I can give you is something I'm doing right now that might be a little bit out of the box, and that is we need to raise money for this museum. We've got a percentage of money there, an amount of money that is left on the bank loan that we want to get paid off by next July. And I'm a firm believer that pennies make dollars. If you want to be frugal and you want to save money, count your pennies, and the dollars will take care of themselves, right? So one of the things I'm working on right now, this is tying together two of my personal interests. And one of them is, as y'all are probably aware, that I'm a fairly avid handgunner and self-defense instructor, and I've got more certifications in those arenas than I could even count and bore y'all to death with. So I came up with the idea a while back, what if I put on a one-day defensive pistol course for SCV members only? And so that's going down April the 13th of this year. I've got two other instructors that are coming in that are going to help me run it. One's going to help me teach. The other one's going to help me from a safety position. And we're hoping, right now I think we got 5 or 6 signed up. We're going to take up to 15. So that's going to be somewhere between $500 and $750 for one class that hopefully, depending on how many sign up. Right now we're at about $250, but if I can get these others, if I can get all of them filled up, you're looking somewhere between $500 and $750 that I can send to Adam Southern and say, hey, put this on the principal. If it goes successfully, I'll be doing it again sometime later in the year, maybe 2 or 3 more times by the end of the year. So that's an out of the box thinking. It's not all about raising the money. It's also about camaraderie. That's why it's SCV only. We've actually got two people coming from another division from Mississippi that are coming over. So it's multifaceted. You show up, you're going to learn your legal rights. You're going to learn how to shoot better. You're going to learn how to shoot faster. And you get to spend a day with Confederates, and you get to eat barbecue because that's included in the $50 price tag. And the net proceeds are going to the museum. So it's a win-win for all concerned. I guess that's out of the box. I don't know. That y'all be the judge.
That's creative. I like that.
That's fantastic. I wish I could come down, but man, it's a long haul from Michigan.
It's a hike in Jersey.
So we have got to the 55-minute mark, and we want to be very respectful of your time, but we do have one more question I want to ask, and it's I have not failed, I don't think, to ask a candidate this yet. Are member views and thoughts in the direction of the SCV important to you, and why? And how much do you value the concern of the membership?
Well, as I've said multiple times throughout this interview, you know, the camp is the backbone of the organization. Always has been, always will be. Who makes up the camp? The members do. Without members, you got no camp. Without camps and without members, you have no organization, and our cause dies. Okay, so absolutely, 100%. You know, if you don't have any regard for what the membership thinks, you probably ought not to be running for any kind of office. Okay, so now does that mean I'm going to agree with every opinion of every member? No, I can't. That would make me two-faced. I can't do that. You know, but if a member comes to me with a good idea or a problem he needs solved, you know, absolutely, I'm going to listen to him. And if I can't solve his problem, I'll try to point him in the right direction to somebody that can. And that's another part of being, you know, kind of being in tune with the organization and of camaraderie and camps and brigades and divisions working together. The more you do these things, the more people you know. The more people you know, the more resources you have. That you can point somebody in. You know, if somebody comes up to me and says, hey, you know, we'd like to teach a basket weaving class for the local ladies club in my town. Well, I'm not going to be able to help you. All right. But maybe I know somebody that can. To go talk to this person. I don't know how to weave baskets. So, you know, and that's a goofy, you know, example, but I think you understand the point. So yeah, you've got to 100%. You've got to take the views and opinions and concerns of the membership into effect. And you know, I think if you don't, you know, you shouldn't be running for office.
Thank you. That's a great answer.
That's awesome. That example.
Well, with that being the last question, we're going to close out the program. Again, Carl, I want to thank you so very much for being willing to come on the program and speak with us and speak to the membership of the SCV, particularly those within the Army of Tennessee Department, and giving everyone an opportunity to see and hear from one of the candidates that the AOT will have a chance to vote for at the SCV National Reunion. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we close?
No, that's it, man. I appreciate y'all doing this. Appreciate, you know, this talk about communication. Hey, y'all are providing an example of it and out of the box in the, you know, in the manner of going about it. So thank y'all for doing this, and hope to see both of you in Charleston.
I can't
Absolutely.
wait.
I have every intention of seeing you there, sir.
Good deal.
Thank you. Thank you again. And thank you to everyone watching. I hope this helps you, the viewer, be a more informed voter when we meet as a band of brothers later this summer at the National Reunion. On behalf of my co-host and producer, compatriot Vinny Balducci from Private Meredith Pool Camp 1505, Hamilton, New Jersey, and producer, compatriot Dennis Palmer out of Secession Camp number 4, Charleston, South Carolina. My name's Jonathan McLeese, Admiral Raphael Sims Camp 1321, Dearborn, Michigan, and I thank you for joining us today for this edition of Meet the Candidate 2024. God bless you. God bless Dixie. Deo Vendici.
Deo Vendice, y'all.